So you got to take that off.
Hi.
There we go. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Happy Saturday. Hope you're all enjoying it, having a good Saturday with us and by yourself or, collectively. Whatever. I'm trying to get both of us in the screen here. Hi, Julie.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay.
Well, Oh, go ahead.
We just did an intro.
So that little clip there that you just saw was from Tuesday, this past Tuesday in Biloxi, Mississippi. I almost said Minnesota, Mississippi, from our Mardi Gras parade. That was the first three things that came up. So the first group that you saw there was the old Biloxi marching club. And they're having their 50th anniversary this year. And they start the parade by handing out flowers, artificial flowers to all the ladies. And sometimes they get kisses for doing that. And the other night, at one of the night parades, they had lipstick all over their face. So
that's cute.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's part of what makes living here fun. And then the last float that you saw was the king of the carnival season, or the Mardi Gras, king of Mardi Gras in Biloxi, King d'Iberville, as they call him. The reason for that is that Monsieur d'Iberville, I forget his first name, Pierre something, blah, 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 d'Iberville, was the man who founded, was allegedly founded Biloxi. And it was founded originally as a fort in 1699. Before he went on to find the mouth of the the Mississippi River, where he established the city of New Orleans, and the rest is history. So, and then they went to do Mobile, so they established Mobile.
Yeah.
Which we were also in. We were in Mobile on Sunday, this past Sunday, so almost a week past. They have a special event on their Sundays before Mardi Gras, which is called Joe Cane Day. And we don't have anything interesting to show you from that, but it has its own traditions, and you can look that up, Joe Cane. He is allegedly the founder, or the man responsible for reigniting Mardi Gras celebrations in Mobile after the Civil War, and for kind of bringing about the new tradition of Mardi Gras. So all this to thumb his nose at the occupying Union Army. So yeah. So
what I'm doing right now is I'm just putting this live stream on our Substack page right now, so that people can on Substack will know that we're live.
Okay. We tried streaming directly to Substack today, and it told me I had an old key that still wasn't good anymore. So
we're still learning it.
Yeah, it's a new thing, and so probably by next time Julie does a broadcast, we will have it down. I tried it yesterday to make sure it worked, and it did, but I guess that was the old key that it was telling me I had. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, because they generate the key. So I don't know. Anyway, so it's in beta right now, so it's got some bugs, I imagine. I had to email the support team to find out some information, and they had to check, and yeah. So they answered my question. But anyway, okay, so it looks like we're live on Substack now.
Live, or that I just posted. We're not live.
Oh, we're not live. Okay, yeah.
On Substack,
we should be, but we're not. Yeah, okay.
I posted a
link
to our live broadcast on Rumble.
All right. Doesn't look like anybody's on the chat.
Not yet. So if you're listening and you're tuning in, please say hi.
Yeah. Now that's for people who are on YouTube only. Unfortunately, our Rumble doesn't have that ability.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, only if we look at Rumble.
Well, I can open up Rumble right now. You can take that down if you want.
Well, whatever. It's
that
fine.
Screen that you just pulled up.
Yeah.
I can just look at Rumble right now and make sure that if anybody is chatting, that I respond.
Okay. Well, hey, so if you've noticed down below here, where's my finger? There we go. Down below here, you'll notice that we're asking you. There's Liz. Hi, Kevin. All right, cool. Folks are there. You'll notice that we are once again fundraising, because that's what we do these days. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our situation, and Julie has some input as well. So it says, please support us. You can go to patreon.com and become a member or a patron there for, I don't know how little. You can make a one-time donation on PayPal, and that's coming up. That's paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can go to Cash App, and it's $Book of Hours, one word. Okay. We are facing some serious shit right now. I have been in a contract position. So I have been part of the gig economy for the last 10 years, meaning that I don't have a lot of worker rights, even less than most people, now that the whole country is a work, what is it called?
Right to work.
Right to work. Yeah. Right to work?
Mm-hmm.
Something like
right
that.
To work.
Or something like that.
Yes. It's called right to work.
And that means that you don't have a lot of rights as a worker. They basically didn't have to tell me they were closing my department. They just let us go. They gave me 2 weeks notice as a courtesy.
But they didn't have to.
And
they never do when you're a contractor
just
a temp worker.
Right. So I rarely get that. I don't get any severance. I don't get anything. Basically, I get the boot. And I have to take the responsibility of sending their computer back to them. So they pay for it, and that's about it. They don't pay for the gas to go out to the UPS store. Anyway, so I am currently out of work. I am collecting unemployment. And as it turns out, we landed in a state that is the lowest paying unemployment rate in the country. We're last. We're the bottom. So I'm making less than half of what I made in Pennsylvania in my unemployment.
Right.
And I was making, like the maximum. I was making a lot more living and working here than I was in Pennsylvania. So yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
And it doesn't make any sense. And it's proof, and not only that, but I have to jump through flaming hoops and over a pile of shit after I jump through the hoop in order to qualify for these things. And I have to do all kinds of shit all the time to demonstrate that I'm sincerely looking for work, in realistic work. Anyway, so that said, we are making enough to cover our mortgage and our car payment, and that's about it. So barely. This is no longer about paying for our ISP and our hosting company and our Wi-Fi. This is so we can eat. Yeah. So we're covering the mortgage, that's a big ticket. And we're looking for donations. If 20 of you gave $20 on PayPal right now, that wouldn't be bad. But what's even better is if you become a patron or you sign up with Substack and become a subscriber for like $5 or something. If we had more than just a couple subscribers, paid subscribers on Substack, it would really help monthly, right? Mm-hmm. So right now we make very little per month. We are like at the lowest I think we've ever been. Flaming hoops. Sorry, that was funny. Well, yeah, it is kind of funny. It's a weird image, especially when there's a pile of poop on the other side of that flaming hoop.
That you need to avoid.
Yeah, that I need to avoid after I jump through the flaming hoop.
But before you fly over, so you have to fly through the flaming hoop, and then there's a pile of poop on the other side of the flaming hoop. But in order to qualify for the lowest unemployment payout in the country, here in the state of Mississippi, you have to describe the poop that you're avoiding. So you have to, make sure that you take very detailed notes on the kind of poop. Is it human poop? Is it horse poop? Is it pig poop?
Is it wet,
cat
dry?
Poop?
Does
is it wet?
Maggots?
Is it dry? What time did you see the poop? How many times did you see the poop?
Yeah.
So it's I've never seen anything like this. We've all experienced unemployment before in our various states, but I've never seen anybody have to actually travel 40 minutes to a specific office and then stand in line for 40 minutes or attend a 40-minute orientation to be told that in order to qualify for unemployment, you have to describe the poop.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go searching for the poop on the unemployment department. And each little layer of poop has a little code. And then you have to grab that code and you have to describe the poop. And then you have to mail the code to a specific person. And this is all so that we can qualify for $200 a week after making $90 an hour for 3 years or whatever it was.
No, it was a little less than that.
A little less than that, but not much. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, we are probably, of all the unemployed people in the state of Mississippi, we have the ability and the understanding of bureaucracy, gibberish, nonsense, bullshit that sets a person up to fail. And we know how to circumvent it and navigate through these really treacherous, strange, bizarre, impossible waters. Most people in our position probably don't have that and just give up and just say, there is no way I can do any of that at all. I'll just not be on unemployment. And so they become homeless, they starve to death, they have no way to take care of themselves because it's too complicated. It's too difficult. You have to have a strong internet access and you have to have a strong mind to do these things. But because we are the kind of people that understand crazy bureaucracy for some reason and we get it, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We have to do it. We have no choice.
Now, when I was in the center, and they made me go in on Mardi Gras day too.
So
I had to go in the morning on Mardi Gras. So
yeah,
I ended up catching the parade, but yeah, that was really uncool because usually the government offices in this county, in this area, are closed. The city is closed
on Mardi Gras.
The city government is closed on
for
Mardi
the
Gras.
week practically.
Well, yeah, at least Mardi Gras. School is shut down for a week.
Mardi Gras in the southern Gulf Coast is more popular and more important than Christmas.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So to have him go into this bureaucratic bullshit orientation, like he's, and teach him how to apply for a job at McDonald's is not only insulting, of course, but it's also, it seems like it's setting people up to fail because to force him to go on Mardi Gras Day, do you know what the entire region does on Mardi Gras Day? They get up at like 4 a.m. They get ready. They fill up their floats, their costumes. I mean, it is this event of all events. And so to force people to go and do something for 2 or 3 hours to interrupt, preparing for Mardi Gras shows me that they are assuming people will not go to that orientation. And if you don't go to the orientation, you lose your benefits.
Right. So
you lose your $200 a week.
So anyway, going back to, like I went to the center and there weren't a lot of people there, but there are people who are not savvy, especially internet savvy, and they probably don't have much of a connection. They certainly don't have computers hooked up. They use their phones and stuff. And that the thing is, the website is just definitely not set up to work on a phone. So they can go into the center and there's all these resources for them. But, the time it takes to go there, to use the resources, to talk to somebody, I mean, it really sucks a lot out of your day, just me going out there for, a half hour, 40-minute, meeting it took a lot. And then I had a bunch of paperwork to fill out as well. It was kind of crazy. It's like, it was the ultimate in box checking ultimately, because see, these centers that are run by the state also get funding through other sources, through foundations and the federal government and all that stuff. And so they have to go through these steps and get you to fill out all this paperwork in order to collect that funding so that they can run that center and justify their own jobs and, whatever else. But in order for you to get that check every week, they have to prove to the federal government and to the other funding streams that they're actually creating this resource for the public to find employment. So it's really shitty bureaucracy. and we'll get into probably talking about bureaucracy on the positive side in a little while, but there's a lot of things that you have to do. And I think basically what it comes down to is America hates its poor, and it's always hated its poor since the very beginning, since George Washington did not want to pay his soldiers after they became veterans when the war was over. Okay. They did not want to help the veterans after they fought the Revolutionary War. Right. So, and they didn't get the same rights and liberties that the bourgeoisie, the people who said, "Hey, come fight with us for liberty, and we'll liberate ourselves from the royalty." And I've told this story before, but these are the non landowning people who went and actually put their life on the line, and they didn't get shit. They eventually did. Congress did eventually approve money for them, but the first president didn't want to do it. And so, throughout the history of the United States, poor people have always been neglected, abused, blamed for their own misery, blamed for their own misfortune, manipulated, used, coerced, you name it, and always blamed for their position in society. And we're back there again, and I've been in this place before. I've been on unemployment before because, like I said, I have been a contractor for the last 10 years. I was pushed out of my last full-time job. And it was pure, arrogance, I guess, is the thing. There was a new manager came in. I was based out of the San Francisco office. She was in the New York office. We had people in other offices too, including Shenzhen, China. And she wanted to basically round up.
She was a hatchet man.
And yeah.
That's what she was.
She brought in her own
Sounds like
crew.
Change Health.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
exactly
I've seen this before, and before at least I got severance that lasted 6 months, but that was the last time I ever saw that, and that was in lieu of a bonus that I was due, at that time. So they got rid of me right at the point where they were going to give me a bonus and a pay raise and all that stuff. Right. So I lost that. And ever since then, I have been a contractor, which means that you only get gigs for short periods of time. And if they don't really need you anymore, they can let you go. At will employment. That's what it's called.
Oh, it's at will.
Not right to work. It's at will.
At will.
Yeah.
Okay.
At will. And because of at will, and because I'm a contractor and I'm being placed there through another company, nobody owes me shit when I get let go. So then I've got to get back out there. So I've been here before, but this is, I think, the worst that it's been ever, because along with me, millions of others out there in the United States are also unemployed. And Julie, you wanted to talk to this to some degree.
Right. So a lot of people don't understand that the pending mortgage crisis and the pending housing crisis that is just around the corner, which will be far worse than the 2008-2009 financial collapse, is a direct result of the lack of employment or the rise of the corporate sector unemploying millions of workers, millions of professional workers. So this is what we're basically facing. So when the Bush administration was exiting in 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
and the Obama administration was entering in, he inherited the collapse of the industry as a result of various tools that were put in place to create a sort of a fake economy. And so it was under the Obama administration that we had the worst financial crisis, which is what inspired the movie The Big Short. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. We're headed into like a bigger short. So during the Biden administration, what the Biden administration did is they set up financial tools under FHA loans, which made it look like people were not in foreclosure of their homes. So people were going months and months and months or years and years and years without paying their mortgage. And those financial tools have an end date. And that end date just so happens to come right as the Trump administration is coming into office and starting to do their thing. So what we're witnessing is the end of those financial tools, and millions of mortgages are now in foreclosure, which means that the housing market is going to plummet through the, it's going to bottom out. But one of the narratives that's coming from the Trump administration and all of his acolytes and all of his fans and all of these sort of libertarian types or whatever,
or just hardcore Republicans,
is the fact that, these lazy people are not paying their mortgage and they're going to tank the economy. That's not the case. The people that keep the middle class, or the people that keep the economy afloat in your small towns or in your neighborhoods and larger cities, make up the middle class. It's the middle class that spends the money. They buy the cars, they buy the houses, they buy the food, they support local businesses, they buy the clothes, they buy the thing, they invest in the local economy through local churches, through local schools, through local. This is what the middle class does. Now, the upper echelons of society, the super rich, the billionaires, or even the multi-billionaires, maybe even in some cases the multimillionaires, they invest back into businesses, or they're either investing into startup companies, or they're investing into energy companies, or they're investing into ideas. They're not investing into their local economies. That's not what they do.
So that money stays up there.
So it stays up there. Yeah. It stays, up. I'm sorry. It stays up there. And the only people that are keeping the local economies from tanking are the middle class, people like me and JP. So the middle class is experiencing and has experienced since 2022, we are now in 2025, has experienced a destruction of the economy through job loss, through losing, like in JP's case, entire departments just being closed down, buyouts from other companies, which then they live on a skeleton crew, and they force individuals, you can take that graph down, they force individuals who are working in one part of the department to pick up, pick up the reins in other departments. So suddenly people who were hired to do one thing, like say marketing, they're hired to do marketing, and suddenly they're told that they have all these other things that they need to do, for their job. Most of the people that are being fired are being let go or losing their income are, of course, JP's demographic. Anywhere from 30 something up to 60 something white males. I can't tell you how many resumes that we have sent out to corporations that are seeking UX designers. And this is another aspect to the unemployment fraud that I want to talk about, which I'll briefly touch on. But I can't tell you, when I go to their pages and I look at their support staff and I look at who their staff is, it's all women. It's all women, white women, women of color, women. And maybe there is one guy in the back, okay? And specifically, I saw the support staff, or the staff, where the guy looked absolutely beaten down. He looked so tired out, and it was all women that were like,
yeah. Well, I want to say something about that. So
and
the reason for that,
so
the reason there are so many women in these positions, and the people that were left over from my department that were not let go were all women. Yeah. Now the reason for that is that it's a very cynical way of proving diversity, but also not having to pay as much, because I'm sorry, but it's true. Women don't make as much as men do.
Right.
And, the ERA was going to help with that, but it never went through thanks to Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And that
if
distraction.
you don't know what the ERA is, please do some research.
Go to at least go to Wikipedia and look
For
up
God's
the ERA.
sake, learn some things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a cynical way of making the corporations look like they're being diverse and blah blah blah, but they're also paying these people less because,
Okay. And so what's happening is, in order to qualify for the $200 a week that Mississippi will pay him in unemployment, we have to go look for work. And we would look for work anyway, whether we would get unemployment or not, obviously. So we go to the websites that claim that they need UX designers. And the second we upload our resume and hit apply to that particular job or to any job that he feels qualified for, we get an auto response that says, thank you for your application. We'll consider you. And then 1 week later, we get an auto rejection because the jobs aren't really available. They're not really available for the public because we learned when we worked as a contractor or when he worked as a contractor for Optum, he learned that they're only hiring from within. And a friend of mine, and I won't drop any names, and I'll try to be as, I'll try not to give as much detail to this, but a friend of mine kind of confirmed this for me. So what happens, JP's in the office. There's all these jobs that are available that he could apply for. He's a contractor. He'd much prefer to be a full-time employee so that he can earn bonuses, so that he can get paid time off, so that he can get insurance, so that he can get pay raises like everybody else does that he works with.
But I wasn't allowed to apply to those jobs.
But he wasn't allowed to apply for those jobs because they were only for in-house employees. So they're basically just moving the deck chairs around the Titanic. So people that are already fully gainfully employed can apply for these other jobs. And so they can just, move these people around like on a chessboard without ever allowing contractors who are considered outside the company to apply for the jobs. So that tells me if they're not even going to let contractors who are doing the work, at the company, if they're not even going to let them apply, then they're certainly not going to be fielding applicants from the outside, right? Mm-hmm, right. But in order to make it look like they're doing their due diligence to, it's kind of like with unemployment, he has to show that he's applying for work in order to get funding. Well, the companies have to show that they are putting these jobs out there in order to get funding from the government or from investors or funders or whatever. So it's all fake. All the jobs out there or the private sector don't exist.
And every time a company,
unless you're already working in the company.
Right. And anytime a company lets go a bunch of employees, the stock price rises. And so the shareholders enjoy a higher rate of return. And the CEOs get rewarded in bonuses.
Right.
So it's good for them it's good for their business and they're good for their own pockets to dump a lot of people and then just make everybody else keep, work harder. Right.
So let me tell you something that a friend of mine who is not in the corporate sector, okay, and hasn't been in the corporate sector probably for 20 plus years, has a friend who is in the corporate sector. Okay. And this friend is gainfully employed. And so the friend who's not in the corporate sector went to his friend and said, hey, I have a friend who needs a job. This is what he does. And that person responded. Now that person is in marketing. That person responded with, oh yeah, I do that too. I know what that is. I do that sometimes too for my job. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. It's like saying to a candy striper, okay, go to the hospital and you have a candy striper who's like sitting and reading to the kids. I have a friend, you work in this hospital, right? I have a friend who's a doctor that needs a job. And the candy striper goes back to you and says, oh yeah, I do that too. I do doctor too. I pretend to be a doctor too.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So there's something going on. If this person who is in marketing and doesn't have any background whatsoever in UX design is claiming that she or he or they is is also doing UX design on the side, then something is wrong.
Right.
Then there's something wrong.
Because the requirements,
so the cat's out of the bag.
The requirements that I see on these applications are phenomenal. It's getting to the point. I mean, it's clear they're not really looking for candidates, because very few people can actually, you've got to spin plates and chew gum while rolling on balancing on a ball, and juggle too.
Right.
Yeah.
And write code on the side and interview your product owners and interview your VCs, which are your venture capitalists. And it's not real. Okay. Yeah. So we're living in this illusion, right? So one of the things that I want to go back to, and then we can move forward if you want. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to go back to is the narrative that, people aren't living within their means, or people are just lazy, or it's all everybody's fault for being so unemployed. Mm-hmm. Well, you can just, fuck off, because that's not true. That's not true. You have a system that is designed to compress people. And here's a good example. Back in 2015, so he lost his secure, stable in job where he had. Well, that's what I'm saying. But listen, he lost a secure, stable job with Moody's where he had bonuses, pay raises, really good benefits. He lost it in 2014. Okay. In like the spring of 2014. By 2015, he was sitting on that couch you see right behind us with his head in his hands and going, something's going on in the world. I feel compressed. Okay. So now 10 years later, his friends, people that he's known for decades that have never, ever been unemployed, never, ever had job insecurity, who've always been in the corporate sector and enjoyed benefits, paid time off, bonuses, pay raises. Suddenly they find themselves for the first time in their lives in a gig economy where they're basically just like, yeah, I'm just a temp. I just get paid by the hour and I get none of the perks. Those jobs are now they're very few and far between, and they're all over their place. They're in the federal sector now. They're in the corporate sector, the private sector.
In all sectors of the private. So financial, health.
Some people security. Come to us and say, oh no, were you the victim of Trump's cuts? And it's like, well, not really, because this has been going on since 2022. This has been going on since 2015, if you really want to think about it, where we are all being compressed down. People who were gig economy people are now McDonald's workers. People who were writing code or engineers for a living are now desperate and destitute. People who were working full time and had benefits and were and had a good retirement ready for them, they are now forced into the gig economy. So we're all being compressed down. And that was what the Great Reset was all about, was to kickstart that into like this really aggressive motion. And that's what our economy is made of. So people come to us and they say, oh, well, you could maybe get a job at McDonald's or work at a gas station. It's like, yeah, that's why I learned how to be a UX designer over the last 25 years.
Here's the other thing too, something like you go to, like a company like Lowe's, for instance, they say they hire, they prioritize hiring veterans. Right. And the thing is like, people who are non-veterans, they basically, everybody pretty much except managers are part-time employees. And that's because they don't have to pay them. If they work up to like 32 hours or just shy of 32 hours, they don't have to pay insurance benefits. Okay. So they hire people to do part-time jobs. And the veterans, they have VA insurance. So if they prioritize people who already have VA insurance, then again, it's like going back to what I said a moment ago about corporations and keeping women around. The Lowe's says, we're pro-vet and we hire vets and we prioritize vets because they don't have to, they can make themselves look patriotic and good to the public that shops at their store. But they don't have to support the vets through insurance. And so they save money by hiring the vets. They're, and they pay shit wages anyway, right? It's practically minimum wage at a part-time shift. And so people have to have 2 to 3 jobs in order to, have the kind of security one would have before with a single job working full time. The language, and like I said before, America has always hated its poor, and something occurred to me was, ever since the Johnson administration's, war on poverty and the idea of like welfare and public housing and things like that, we've been sort of navigating some of the things like Medicaid and food benefits and things like that.
Help with our utilities.
And the interesting thing is that you have to be completely destitute in order to qualify for those things. So I would basically, if I wanted to qualify for those benefits, I would have to give up my my unemployment income in order to qualify for those things. And so you're at this kind of like catch-22. It's like, well, I'm making this money enough to cover, the important bills, but I can't cover everything. So why can't I get a little extra help to help me with food? Oh, no. You can't have that because you're making too much money.
On unemployment.
And the thing is
we don't qualify for any help.
Going, setting that aside and looking at people, there's always been this narrative about, welfare mothers and these lazy poor people having lots of kids. The reason they're having lots of kids is because they make more money when they have more kids. It keeps them in the poverty cycle, but it's the only way to keep a roof over their heads and feed themselves and their children.
It gives them shelter. It gives their utilities paid for. It gives them SNAP benefits.
These are the other policies. These are also the policies that have forced the men out of the household because they ding the household because there's a 2-income household.
Right. Okay? That's why you have single mothers.
And then they get aggressively blamed for being deadbeat dads and welfare mothers. And we saw this
in McKees Rocks.
Because I was there. We at one point we were on food assistance, a big $15 a month, but we were getting it because all I was doing was driving a school bus part-time. And the kids that I drove were from the projects, and they openly talked about a lot of the things that were in their life. And I started seeing what was going on. And we've talked about things like wraparound services in our videos, and wraparound services are basically, the nonprofit sector coming in, like the what's that group that you always have to give to in the office? United Way, right? The United Way will come in and they'll set up these programs, but these programs never get you to that point where you can be self-sufficient.
No,
they only get you to that interview, maybe. They train you to have interviews. They train you to do all this other stuff, but you never land that job because that job doesn't exist. And if it does, you lose all your fucking benefits if you make too much money.
Right.
And so it's a never-ending cycle. And so people are stuck in this system and getting blamed and just eviscerated in the media for being who they are, stuck in a system that they didn't create in the first place.
Right. So this doesn't sound very American in family values, does it? Where children can only be taken care of appropriately if dad is out of the house. This is sort of the opposite of this American value system that is played up in some administrations,
So the Democrats set the people up for failure, and the Republicans blame them for failing. So both sides are really basically attacking the poor people. And then along with this narrative, I want to bring this graphic back up because this is also part of the narrative that's going on right now. I'm going to read this little content down here in the bottom right hand corner. It says debt to income ratio for FHA homebuyers. Debt to income ratio for FHA homebuyers was 44% in 2022. That was higher than the peak of the previous bubble in 2007-2008, meaning that the U.S. government is once again giving low-income households mortgages they can't afford to buy houses. defaults, forced sales, and foreclosures are coming. Now, the subtext of this content in this graphic is poor people are buying houses that they can't afford and that they shouldn't be buying. This was the narrative in 2007 and 2008. Julie mentioned the movie The Great Short. In that movie, The Big Short, in that movie, two investigators go and find a pole dancer in Florida who owns 5 houses that are that are in foreclosure. Yeah, that are in foreclosure. And she's like, I didn't know I just was offered these things. So they're making these people to be stupid and my vocabulary, lazy and scheming and conniving. And right, they're using the system to get ahead when they're really not. They're not getting ahead. They're being blamed for bringing down the economy when really it's the people at the top in the investor class who created the situation in the first place. Julie read from the book. What was that? That book that you read the whole thing about the Great Depression and all that. Mm-hmm. We usually have it over here, so I was looking over there. And he talked about how in the Great Depression that was a created situation. That was deliberate. It was a deliberate crashing of the economy, and I'm afraid that we're looking at that again very soon. So
So I wanted to just, we have received. So David Rogers Webb is called The Great Taking.
Yeah, The Great Taking.
And I read it, front to back.
And you can go back to
one of our patrons sent it to me, and I read it front to back.
Yeah.
All right. So when people are in a situation that we are in, where his department has been eliminated and his job was eliminated outside of his control, for some reason, they immediately go to, what did you do wrong? Mm-hmm. You must have done something wrong. Yeah. No, the whole department was eliminated.
My boss was eliminated.
His boss was eliminated. So if you have that thought, get rid of it. Okay, that's not how it goes. Shareholders and investors got a lot of money to add to their offshore bank accounts when those departments in the organization were eliminated. It has nothing to do with performance. Okay. All right. So then the second thing that we tend to get is, well, I guess you'll just have to start living within your means. Okay.
Or you could go see if the AARP should have job listings. No, they don't. They don't have that.
Yeah. So first of all, that's really judgmental and really it certainly doesn't help.
I got it when I was working at the bus company, I was and this guy also got forced out of his job, and he was making even more than I was, but he was in a position at the bus company where he was an executive in the corporate level. He didn't take the big pay cut that I took a 75% pay cut back then. And he said that.
Yeah,
he said that to me. He literally said that to me.
After his job was eliminated at the contract that he was at, or after he was, we had left San Francisco and moved to Pittsburgh. So people don't know our life. They don't know what we went through.
Well, and they
don't know the sacrifices that we've made. Right. They don't understand how the economy works, especially if they're living in a place of privilege. They have no clue what the world is really like. And somehow, without an income, okay, we don't have an income, and our mortgage is $2,500 a month.
Because remember, we pay into unemployment in our paychecks, so the money that I'm getting back is money that I paid into the system. So
without an official income, these people who are telling me that I need to live within my means, I'm like, first of all, I've been able to work fucking miracles. I've been able to pay 2 months of mortgage without an income. That's working miracles.
And we don't have a lot of savings either.
And we don't have any savings. We don't have any savings.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Okay, so we're not going to lose. We're not going to be like those millions of people who are out of work in the corporate and federal sector, who are facing foreclosure for the first time in their life because of the way the corporations and the various administrations are constantly screwing workers over. We're not going to be like that. We're not even we're not even facing foreclosure.
Well, not yet.
Or anything like
yet.
that yet. Nothing. The credit is actually going up and looking good. So when people say to me, well, I guess you have to live within your means, I'm sitting here not able to afford groceries and not able to keep my lights on because I've just made sure that we have shelter, that we don't lose our home. And people are sitting there telling me that you better learn to live within your means. It's like, well, you better shut the fuck up. Why don't you come over here and buy my groceries and pay my utilities, which are $400 a month.
Speaking of all that.
So it is unbelievable the way people respond to people who are unemployed as a result of a department cut or a department going away. The shame that I see all over LinkedIn. It's your fault that your resumes aren't good enough. It's your fault that you're not, that if you do happen to get an interview from one of these scam jobs, that you're not, presenting yourself well enough. It's your fault that your resume isn't up to speed. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. And there's so much negativity going towards the millions of people that are unemployed, and they're all over LinkedIn. They all have a little, avatar on their LinkedIn page, or a little thing on their LinkedIn page that says unemployed, open to work. Every single person he is connected to has that image.
I didn't do that.
He didn't do it.
I don't put those things on. I didn't even do that on Facebook.
He doesn't want to be a victim. So, we do things. We are looking for things that are outside of our comfort zone in order to keep this,
which is what we've done before,
to keep this home, so we don't lose this home, our shelter.
Right. So for those of you who have never looked at LinkedIn, LinkedIn is the Facebook of the work world, and it's icky, and it's the same kind of, blame and shame kind of
blaming the victim,
attitudes out there. And even the people who are the victims are like going along with it a lot of times.
The sector, I think, where there is patience and kindness and respect for everybody, that the only sector left is definitely not the federal sector and not the private sector, but the civic sector. If you're unemployed and you are really looking for work and you don't know what to do, go find a job filing for the police department. Filing reports for the police department or filing paperwork. It's not very good money, but it's steady money, and it's safe and it's stable. Right now, it feels like the civic sector here in Biloxi, Mississippi, is more supportive, and the neighbors are more supportive than we've ever seen in the past.
So speaking of that, a couple of people have stepped up recently and given us a significant donation and help. I'm not going to say how much and by who, but enough to really, it's added to our stash, as it were, not our mad money, but our last hope kind of. We're putting that in the the meal money, so that we can go to the grocery store. So I want to thank those of you, and who they are, who you are. For those donations and the support that you're giving us, because it really does make a big difference. And so for the rest of you, again, you don't need to give us a lot, and you can just do it through a donation, or you can be a subscriber to Substack, or you can be on Patreon, and you can get you can get a warm, fuzzy feeling that you're helping us out. Again, like I said, we're not at that point where we're just trying to pay for the services that we use to broadcast, our work. But Julie's been posting stuff on Substack that is only for subscribers and only for Patreon members. So if you are those, you seeing the extra content. She's been we've both been kind of ill as well leading up to this whole thing, and so we haven't been posting as much content. That's why we decided to
then we were hosting someone for a week.
So
Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
So we had a friend come into town who never experienced Mardi Gras before, and she stayed in our guest room, And for a whole week, she lived with us. And she never experienced Mardi Gras before. So that was that took time away from, the posting and the broadcasting.
And then we had to go out and catch plastic beads.
Yeah. So during this whole process of our, lives kind of falling apart, we still tried to give her a good vacation.
Well, and also, it's like I said, you have to celebrate when it's time to.
Right.
And, this didn't cost a lot of money to go out to a parade. So, it's fun. You're around people, you're socializing. And so, you have to learn how to balance these things out and celebrate when it's time to celebrate. So thank you to those of you. Please make a donation or be a subscriber. At least with being a subscriber, you get extra stuff.
There's one last thing I want to say regarding those that are unemployed. I can't believe I'm saying this, but when you are in a position where you could lose your house, lose everything, and the private sector is shut down and the federal sector has shut down, go get something called a public security clearance. That's where a deep investigation is done into you. And if you've never done drugs or been in a gang or, killed anyone, then you'll probably pass. Go get a public security clearance. Then it opens up opportunities for you, again, in the civic sector, and also, believe it or not, in the military sector, where you can work as a civilian within the, usually through a contractor in the military. Somebody said, "Oh no, Trump is going to cut military funding." No, he's
Bullshit.
not.
No,
he's not. I have a brother who is 16 years in the U.S. Army. He's a major. He has job security for life. The military is the industry that gets the most funding. So if you have been a contractor for the military for the last couple of decades, your job is safe. So I would recommend, I can't believe I'm saying this, but honestly, I'm all about survival here. We're just trying to survive. And as much as we're, against some philosophies that have been produced around the military or some existential, issues, the fact is that there's job security. You can take care of your family. You can pay your rent. You can pay your mortgage. You can put food on the table. And that's where we are right now, in a place where we're just trying to, cobble together something and make it work. And so far, we've been able to work miracles for the last couple of months.
But those don't hold out too long.
Right. And pay the mortgage and keep the, keep us in our home. And we're not facing foreclosure like millions of people are right now, because they're not willing to go to some of those uncomfortable places.
They haven't been there before, and so it may be that they don't have the tools yet to be there. I think because we've been here before numerous times, we've experienced this. I think this isn't our first rodeo, as they say. So having that experience helps navigate these things a little bit better. And, having a realistic perspective on everything as well. Yeah,
the woman that you are really good friends with, that you've been, you've had a corporate connection with her for a couple of, at least a decade. For the first time in her life, she has to go into an uncomfortable place and become a contractor. Right. She's never, ever had to work through a temp agency to get a job, ever. So, but she's like, I got a kid in college. I got to pay my mortgage. So yeah, I guess I'll just work for the hour like a fucking grunt, not get, paid overtime, not get a bonus, not get insurance benefits, not get paid vacations. And I'll just, work my 40 hours and get my paycheck and call it a day. So people are already like, walking away from their, I don't want to say ideals or their, their principles. They're, because at one point in her career, she was like, I will never work for a temp agency. They are so exploitive because they get paid a lot of money and then just eke out a little money to the actual workers. But she's doing it. So people are changing and adapting to the compression that I talked about. It's a compression into poverty. So that is 1 hour of our situation. Wow.
Wow.
So really quickly, one of my patrons sent over MSM, the book about MSM, and she also sent me some actual MSM powder.
Right.
So one of the things that I've discovered throughout this whole process is that I'm most likely in the stages of heart failure, because when you have an autoimmune illness, stress exacerbates inflammation. And so prior to the job loss, I was already starting to experience things that were indicative of heart failure, like wheezing. And ever since January 28th, I haven't been able to stop coughing. You might be able to hear it in my chest. I haven't been able to stop wheezing. And I have all of the symptoms of heart failure, or, the onset of it. Mm-hmm. So clearly there's been some major changes that I've adopted into my life. No more, wine with dinner, no more, keeping my salt intake low, maybe trying to exercise a little bit more. But one of the things I found out in this whole process is that MSM helps with that, along with osteoarthritis, which I have, along with inflammation or chronic inflammation, which I have. So let me read you the back of the book. MSM, or methylsulfonylmethane, is the first safe, natural, side effect-free remedy for many types of pain and inflammatory conditions. In this authoritative look at MSM, Dr. Stanley Jacob and Ronald Lawrence reveal how to tap into the benefits of this amazing miracle compound. Experienced in the successful treatment of thousands of patients for pain, they explain how to take MSM, how much, when, and with what foods, and in what form to relieve pain in its many varieties, including degenerative arthritis, chronic back pain, chronic headaches, muscle pain, fibromyalgia, tendinitis and bursitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, TMU, post-traumatic pain and inflammation and allergies, and more. So another thing that I also have been taking is NOC. I actually ran out, but luckily I will receive some more in the mail as a gift. So that's helpful too. This book, I have been just poring over it. This morning, I was just loving everything that I was reading about it. And then I had to put it down so we could go on our morning walk. And
NOC is spelled NAC. Yeah.
And I'm sure many of our followers already know these things. They're already into, sort of the naturopathy or homeopathy. I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending any of this. I did go to the doctor, and he said, if you're not going to go onto statins, and if you're not going to take medication for the onset of heart failure or whatever, at least
cholesterol.
Take CoQ10. So I started taking CoQ10. It is ridiculously expensive, but it really is helpful. So I will continue to take that.
And that's spelled
CoQ10.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Cools, Jules.
So that's that.
Okay.
You want to talk about this?
Yeah. So
why Trump is not going to take away your Social Security benefits?
Yeah. So there's,
or your disability benefits.
Earlier in the month, or I guess last month now, DOGE was basically invading the government sector, the federal government sector, and just firing people right and left, and everybody's like, what the fuck? So here's where bureaucracy is actually good, is it keeps things going between administrations. It's the glue that holds things together. It's the works that keeps the state going. Now, speaking as an anarchist, I'm not, endorsing government necessarily, but, if we have to live in a society that is the way it is, I would rather have people who obey, or who make sure that the laws that are in place that keep us all, safe or whatever, are following those laws, as opposed to some asshole billionaire coming in and basically destroying everything, firing a bunch of people, killing the economy, and taking things away from people who need it. And it looked like very soon they were going to go after Social Security. Now, the interesting thing is that DOGE is in there, doing a basically, chainsaw massacre on benefits and things that people enjoy. And Trump is getting the blame for it. Now I didn't vote for him. I don't like him. I didn't vote for Biden. I don't like him. I don't like any president. Okay. But Trump, I'm just giving you the narrative. Okay. Trump started getting blamed for this. And suddenly, and I knew this was going to happen, suddenly he's yanking Musk's, collar and saying, "Okay, whoa, down, boy,
right.
Leave it,"
right.
Because he was going to start going after Medicare and
Social Security
and stuff.
Disability.
And the thing is that's Trump's base. That's getting into everybody's base. They've always called Social Security the third rail of politics until Clinton came along and almost took it out. Mm-hmm. But it was always something you just couldn't touch. And by third rail, I mean it's something you can't touch, because if you do, you'll electrocute yourself and you'll just ruin your career as a politician. Right. So
can you imagine if Social Security benefits or disability benefits were touched by the Department of Government Efficiency,
which isn't even a department,
or DOGE, and they started slashing benefits to people, there would be I think this is what would cause the riots in the street. Mm-hmm. How dare you take away Grandma's Social Security?
Yeah, or
that's the only way that she can afford to live.
Or Julie's,
yeah, or other friends of ours who are on benefits. I mean, we were just talking to another friend that lives in Washington that is also going through major issues with possibly losing his benefits. Mm-hmm. And he is I don't know, can I say he's legally blind?
Sure.
He's legally blind. So, I mean, and I almost am too. One of the, so side note, one of the symptoms of heart failure is a sudden, fast loss of eyesight, which is exactly what happened to me. So
yeah,
we're going to have to look into that as well. But there's no way that they're going to touch it, or else there would literally be riots in the street. I think there would be.
I still think Trump might end up along the path that Mussolini ended up on, if he keeps letting DOGE, go full tilt, or doing some of the things that he wants to do. It may turn out that way. I don't know.
I hope not. God,
well,
that'd be awful.
Do you know what happened to Mussolini?
Yes.
He was hung upside down and beaten to death, and his corpse was burned. And so that was kind of awesome. And I think that if he had let DOGE go, this would have happened probably by July. So, and I've been saying this all along, is his base would not put up with a loss of Social Security and Medicare, because he is of that generation. A lot of the people who support him is of his own generation, right? And then all the people who are the the conservative working class, I think would also be very upset with that. Even though they may, go, yeah, get rid of those welfare queens and lazy people, but don't touch my Social Security. This was the big criticism of by the liberals of the Tea Party back in 20 years ago.
So here's the actual language, and I think the Politico article that
I wanted to read that.
Yeah,
but anyway,
go
ahead.
Read it?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You read it.
So I'm just. I'm not going to read the whole article, but there's a part here that really should be highlighted. So the president's message. So I guess I didn't pay attention, but I guess Trump did a State of the Union address or something like that last Thursday. I guess I don't know.
We didn't watch it.
The president's message represents the first significant move to narrow Musk's mandate. According to Trump's new guidance, DOGE and its staff should only play an advisory role, but cabinet secretaries should make final decisions on personnel, policy, and the pacing of implementation. So all of this talk about just walking into offices in the federal government and just announcing to people that they were fired and to pack up their stuff and that they lost their pensions and they lost, everything that they had worked hard for in their federal positions. And remember, federal bureaucrats are the line between privatization of your government versus not. Right. So they hold the line because they're strict rule followers. They follow the rules. You want bureaucrats in there. You want somebody like, for instance, in the police department filing the right reports. You want that. Okay. They're the bureaucrats that keep the laws in place. Right. Now, and laws are okay.
Well, yeah, yes,
you don't want to privatize Social Security.
Right, exactly.
You don't want to do that.
Well, and we don't want to privatize the Postal Service, and we don't want to privatize all these things, right?
So this is what's happening is all these federal agencies were fired, and they're going to be replaced with contractors who only get paid by the hour, don't get any benefits, will never get a government pension, just like they're doing in the private sector. They're learning. So the federal government is learning how to take advantage of people through what the private sector has been doing for years.
Right. So there's something called institutional knowledge that is especially important in a government agency, and the bureaucratic workers who do the work have that knowledge, because there's a lot of complicated BS that we were talking about earlier with the unemployment and stuff. That was a case of bureaucracy run amok. But there's also important things that are put into place that help people, manage their lives, through programs and things like that. They have the institutional knowledge that in some cases can actually help people instead of harm them. Right. And if that institutional knowledge isn't there, it's just by the book and not understanding the nuances of the laws as opposed to just following the letter of the law. Okay.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of people that were being fired.
Yeah.
And that's not good. So I think that there had to be, I think it was snowballing and it was getting out of control. And so in the message that Trump had on Thursday, I guess, he sort of said, we're going to actually do things the way that they should have been done all along, which is that Congress has to put things to a vote before they start slashing departments and taking away funding from various departments on the federal level. So it's a vote that has to go to Congress first. Right.
So I think that the back channels were starting to object strongly. You can't do deals with Congress and other politicians if you're fucking them over with some asshole billionaire, being the hatchet man, right? Because you're taking away their power and their ability to have any sort of influence, which takes away their money from their corporate donors and sponsors, right? And so if that starts happening, you're going to have a lot of people in Congress who are going to be unwilling to work with you on anything. Right. Especially things that you need Congress to pass. And so I really think that the back channels and the back offices and hallways of federal power were starting to back up and get a little constipated just out of just like, fuck you, we're not doing this. Right. And you can go to hell.
Right.
So
the next topic was about the forest.
Yeah. So I called it Forest Trump, right? Because, America is a big box of chocolates and, and we might as well take advantage of it. So you were telling me about this morning. So I just want to have a quick discussion about it real quick. So you started seeing this on like Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like
confusing.
It was really confusing because she was telling me about this and it had to do with like, Canadian timber and tariffs and things like that. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. So basically what's going on is Trump wants to start, cutting forests to have a surplus of timber for lumber and things like that. And I was like, but you don't want a surplus if you're trying to sell things and adding a tariff. So making things more expensive and having a surplus is not a good idea, right? So I'm like, all right, there's something to this. It's not just that. So let me just share this thing, and I'll read some of this for you, and I'll give you a little bit of interpretation. Let's see here. I guess it's this one. Yep. Okay, so this is actually from the White House. Okay, so this is the presidential executive order that was put out. I'm going to go over here and read this. So, the preamble is kind of interesting. The production of timber, lumber, paper, bioenergy, and other wood products is critical to the nation's well-being. Okay. Down here, he says, furthermore, as recent disasters demonstrate, forest management and wildfire risk reduction projects can save American lives and communities. Now, something about this is wrong because they're talking about fires that have been taking place in more urban or ex-urban type of places. And so forest management has always been about, well, not always, more recently, forest management has been about burns that help the forests stay healthy, because a forest that has been for a long time there, from probably the turn of the 20th century well into the 80s and 90s of the 20th century, were the idea was to suppress and to keep forest fires from happening. And it started making the timber surplus or whatever in these public lands very unhealthy, because they started getting invasion of insects and diseases and things that go away when a forest occasionally burns. It basically purifies the forest and allows for new growth and stronger trees to come in and weaker trees to go away. Okay, so this idea of wildfires will are going to take away our timber and our resources. So that's bullshit right there. The United States has an abundance of timber resources that are more than adequate to meet our domestic timber production needs, but the heavy-handed federal policies have prevented full utilization of these resources and made us reliant on foreign producers. Now, this document refers to these unnamed domestic policies. I don't know what they are. They don't name them, but they're heavy-handed. And so we have to change that. And basically what this comes down to is Trump's favorite thing in the world. And that is basically cutting through bureaucracy and red tape to get the things done that he needs to get done, because government needs to be run like a business. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. But, so that's like his main thing. His other thing is getting rid of bureaucracy. And the third thing is basically we need to charge more money to our trading partners, because we don't do it enough, and we're buying too much stuff from other countries. And that's true to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. And so what the media has been talking about, this doesn't even mention it,
right?
At all.
Yeah,
the media is talking about tariffs in Canada and Canadian timber, because Trump, I guess, made a statement like something like, we're no longer going to buy Canadian, we're not paying for Canadian timber. And it's like, okay, all right. The third thing that's going on here
is environmental.
Well, there's the environment, but also this, so the environment from the standpoint of you're creating unhealthy forests, or you're taking away a biosphere that should exist. These are public lands. This is not private property where the owners can, forest, they can cut down trees within a certain limit within the EPA, rules and regulations. This is public land, and these are public resources. Now, this is not the National Park Service. This is the National Forestry Service, which is part of the Department of Agriculture. Okay, these are public lands. So what he's proposing to do is to and later on in this document, he talks about it. What he's proposing to do is to find loopholes in laws that have to do with environmental laws, and laws that have to do with management and like only cutting down a certain amount of trees, and finding those loopholes and those exemptions and everything. Find every little thing that he can use to wedge himself in there and push these things aside so that they can cut down more trees than they currently are now. Now, why he wants to do that, I don't know, because it doesn't make any sense to have a surplus of this stuff. He wants to sell this to the private sector. And so what that tells me is that he's trying to find a wedge to convert public lands into private lands.
Right. And so that means the parks will be next.
Possibly.
Maybe.
This is possibility. I mean, Congress has already been passing. We did a video about this, how Congress has already been sort of de-accessioning public lands into private holdings. And that's for mining and for oil drilling and forestry too.
Right.
And so, let me go back to this, because he basically, and so the other thing about this is it's all being couched within the law. Let's see, within the, because it comes up a lot. Here they're trying to make a case for it. Timber production and sound forest management, reduce time to deliver. Oh yeah, so what they're trying to do is increase, basically make it like a business, like on-time inventory or something like that, where it's like, we're going to decrease timber supply uncertainty. And there's things like, and this is really poorly written, by the way, such as the good neighbor authority described stewardship contract pursuant, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're even getting into contracts and agreements with Indian tribes or the Tribal Forest Protection Act. Anyway, he's looking for within 60 days and within 90 days and within 120 days, getting these various secretaries and administrators to give him a report of like what he can do within the confines of the law, but pushing the envelope of legislation not laws, but like rules and regulations, ordinances, regulations, codes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To basically get that wedge in there and get that timber, because it's really important that he get that. It's all about
privatizing public lands. That's all that this is about.
Exactly.
It's not about timber.
Right.
It's about taking away United States citizens' access to public lands.
Right. And here he talks about the Endangered Species Act, and he's talking to the Endangered Species Committee and trying. Okay, so this is what comes up a lot. Maximum extent permissible under applicable law. This keeps coming up because it's like, they're not trying to go out. They're not being DOGE in this case. They're trying to like fall within the context of the law, but they're going to push these ESA regulations. So under permissible law, the ESA regulations on consultations in emergencies to facilitate the nation's timber production. So it sounds to me like he's trying to use emergency regulation to wedge himself in there.
And so this is part of how our economy is run. It's something that I repeat often on the broadcasting that I do. We're run by an emergency economy now. So, let's go back to the fact that we have 1 million homeowners that are in foreclosure right now. Over 1 million people are in foreclosure. It started like 2021-ish or so, when they were told they didn't have to pay their mortgage because of COVID, because we were under the emergency of COVID. Well, that ended. And then in certain sectors of the United States, like Appalachia, Los Angeles, and various other areas, there were natural events which put those communities also under emergency, which meant that they didn't have to pay their mortgages or their rents as well. So the economy seems to be flowing as a result of a state of emergency. If a company is under, in some way under a state of emergency, then they get federal funding. So it's all about emergency. Like this is how things get kickstarted into motion and the funding streams open up. And so I'm not surprised that they put that language in this document, which includes emergency, a state of emergency.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly.
We're under a state of emergency for the opioid epidemic, which started in 2017. And what this state of emergency does is it allows nonprofits to continue to be created and pop up in sectors so that they can do things like provide drugs safely to drug addicts, provide needles, and even the drugs now, not just the needles, but the drugs themselves to drug addicts. And it keeps those people who are running these nonprofits and running these agencies, it keeps them employed. As long as it's under a state of emergency, there's, certain sectors in this country which will be forever funded. And the opioid epidemic is a perfect example of it. It's, state of emergency was declared in 2017. Here we are 8 years later, and only more people have died of drug overdoses as time has gone on since the state of emergency was declared, because there is a lot of money to be made from people of all walks of life dying from fentanyl overdoses or opioid overdoses. Even in daycares, little children were dying of fentanyl overdose. What were they getting, like fentanyl with their juice boxes and cookies before they took a nap? I mean, how do daycare centers have babies dying of fentanyl overdoses? So somebody is profiting from this. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get into that, but the state of emergency is how the economy is run now. And that's no way to run an economy. That's not good.
No, it isn't.
So
it's basically making money from something that doesn't really exist. And I know that's what's been going on for the last 40 years, probably, money that comes from nowhere.
Right.
And it's yeah. And right. So this is just like, I titled it Forrest Gump for a reason, I think. Yeah. Because
it's a what is it called when
fuckery, but yeah.
It's like a Trojan horse.
Yeah, that's a good way.
For privatizing. Which was
also made from timber.
For privatizing public lands. It's a Trojan horse for privatizing public lands. It's not about cutting down trees and keeping, us from buying expensive Canadian timber. It has nothing to do with that. It's about, setting the precedent under an emergency situation to turn public land into private land so that we don't have access to it anymore. So we become that caste system I was talking to you about for, decades now, where you have the very, very poor that live in their impoverished little, broken communities where there's no access to anything good, no parks, no wild, open spaces where people can, find relief from the pressures of the world, And this is a crisis that we're in.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify too that the National Forestry Department of the National Forest Department or whatever is not about giving access to the land. National forests are not national parks.
Yeah, it's about agriculture.
Yeah, and and it looks at these trees as being, products or things that can be used, but oftentimes they are just there. It's kind of, it falls under the idea of like conservation, which was set up by, a lot of wealthy people like RFK Jr. Or going back to the turn of the 20th century, Teddy Roosevelt.
Behind this.
Well, he might be.
It just occurred to me that's where he got his start. Prior to Children's Health Defense,
NDS,
he was with
the Natural Defense Council,
right?
Natural Resource Defense Council,
something like that.
I'm sure
the NRDC,
yeah. So.
Wow, who's probably behind this?
So, conservation was...
That's why it's done under an emergency.
Right.
Duh. Okay. Yeah.
Conservation was always this thing that was used. It was a club used by the wealthy to keep poor people out of their natural habitats, like forests and places of beauty. So let's just make it into a national monument and make sure that, or some sort of conservation clause to keep the unwashed masses out of it from ruining it, right? And you can visit, but you can only go in certain places, right? You can only go in the prescribed parts of the monument or the park in order to see it. So, but we have to conserve these things. And anyway, so it's again going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's like the United States and the people who run it hate the poor who live in the United States. Okay,
yeah, it's true. They do.
And I don't even think this lumber is about Trump and his idea of like building new cities. Remember that whole bit?
Yeah.
Like when he was campaigning?
Yeah,
that
it's
was
not
bullshit.
about building new
No.
cities. No, it's about private.
And here's the other thing too, and it's about being able to give contracts to companies that will cut down those trees. It's about lowering the cost of companies like Georgia Pacific, who manage forests and make paper and shit like and lumber and things like that. They manage their own private forests, but in this case, they probably can buy timber cheaper from the government from these public lands than they can to grow their own. Right. So that's what this is about. It's rewarding the companies and the corporations that are basically doing what corporations do in America, and that's fuck people over, make lots of money, and donate to politicians.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Okay.
Last topic before we head out. It's now at the 90-minute mark.
We are now. Oh man, yeah. I was hoping we could get past that, but
yeah, it's not possible because we haven't actually been live.
Our last
in
bookmark,
like a month.
No, our last bookmark was in December, right before the end of the year.
I thought it was February. We had a Saturday special.
Did we? Oh well, we had a Saturday special. Yeah, a little while ago. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So about a month ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't a bookmark.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So the last topic is kind of
icky. It's really icky. In fact, it has something to do with mouse poop and with Betsy Arakawa, who was
Gene Hackman's wife.
And she died along with him.
So this is what the report, like I guess the coroner's report, has decided to field out to the public. And so all of the media is telling you that this is what happened. Betsy Arakawa died like a week or so
before Gene
Hackman did, and he's in the throes of dementia and couldn't help himself, so then he died soon after. It's all. And what did she die of?
She died of something called Hantavirus. So, and as soon as you told me that, I was like, what?
No.
Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you what Hantavirus is in a minute, but first of all, she was found in a room with a bunch of pills around her. Like, what the fuck? That's like right out of this
Michael
movie.
Clayton.
We just rescreened the movie called Michael Clayton, where they go where they go in and murder a guy. These hitmen murder a guy by first shocking him, and then knocking him out with a drug, and then kill him by using a needle, what do you call it, a syringe, between his toes to like kill him and make it look like he overdosed on some pills, and they threw some pills around.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly how she was found.
Exactly.
Like with a bunch of pills thrown around her in the bathroom, which is it's a scene right out of Michael Clayton. It's the exact same scene.
Right.
So I guess maybe like the narrative was just so unbelievable that they had to throw in a virus from mice in order to.
Yeah. So let me show you. So that it's this one. Okay. So this is Wikipedia, and so it's there it is. Okay. Hantavirus. Okay. I'll read it to you. So basically, Hantavirus is a genus of viruses that includes all hantaviruses that cause diseases in humans. Okay. So now we're getting into One Health, So One Healthy.
You're going to have to explain the One Health thing because One Health probably don't understand.
So this is something we've been talking about for a long time, and they're going to continue bringing this up. One Health is the idea that animals and humans share the same diseases, and that we all, we can't have pets anymore because they're going to make us sick. Or something like that.
Right.
No, but this is the basis.
This is why we had the NIH director was a veterinarian.
Right. And this is why the bird flu keeps coming up. This is why they're this is what's justifying, killing chickens and making it seem like, or telling us they're killing chickens, and giving us an egg shortage, and all these other things. It's not about not having pets. It's about much worse. It's like taking away food supply. It's about blaming a virus that's like so deadly on a wet market that was selling bats for food. This is why they blame bats for a lot of things. This is blaming mice now. So, and I've heard of Hantavirus for a long time. I've known about it. I don't, believe in it, but do you have your little?
I have my little bat.
You have your little Valentine bat. Let's see if we can see.
Right.
Let me hide this on stream. There you go. Oh, hello.
I love bats. I think one of the last things I bought before we left Pittsburgh was a little crocheted bat. It's not this one. This is a different bat, but man, it's cute. Bats are really cute. And then we have bats that fly over our house. JP was like, hey, come out here and look at this. And there were these, I thought they were birds
flying around,
but the wings were so different. Like bats are actually really cool.
Around.
Yeah. And they go by sound because they're blind.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, like we had a ton of them over the house, and it was really cool. So
cool.
Suddenly I became like really into bats over the last couple of months.
Yeah. It's really cool to watch them. They go around eating the insects in the evening. So it's really good. Okay. So hantavirus. Okay. So hantaviruses are transmitted mainly through aerosols and droplets. Remember that word?
Oh my God. Here we go again.
That contain the droplets.
Oh my God.
That contain rodent excretions, as well as through contaminated food, bites, and scratches. Environmental factors such as rainfall, temperature, and humidity influence transmission. Human-to-human transmission does not occur, interestingly enough.
Yeah, only animals.
This just reeks of One Health. Anyway.
Yeah.
So this story kind of like, again, folds into the whole One Health narrative that you'll start seeing more and more of. They're just building up to it.
Right.
HFRS is marked by kidney diseases and kidney swelling, excess protein in urine, and blood in urine. The case fatality rate of HFRS varies from less than 1% to 15%, depending on the virus. Now you're okay. Let me finish this paragraph. A mild form of HFRS is often called nephrophalia, I don't know, epidemica. My Latin is not good. Is often caused by Pomala virus and blah 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 virus. For the HPS, initial symptoms are flu-like with fever, headache, and muscle pain, followed by sudden respiratory failure. HPS, again with the respiratory. HPS is a much higher case fatality rate than HFRS at 30 to 60. For both HFRS and HPS illnesses is the result of increased vascular permeability, decreased platelet count, and overreaction of the immune system. Okay, so I think I've said enough, but here's the thing. How is it that a Hollywood movie star who made the most money of all Hollywood royalty in royalties, I meant to say.
So
okay, than anyone else living in a nice house that has staff that keeps it clean, and free of rodents, suddenly they're living in a rodent feces infested living environment. Where they're getting flu-like symptoms that they don't address because they don't have insurance or something. Who knew? I'm just saying that. But you'd think that somebody like that would go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this. Stop doing that."
Right.
But seriously, like this is the kind of thing that you would find in, again, poverty impoverished type environments,
right,
rather than wealthy environments.
right.
So what were you going to say?
About
the royalties?
Yeah. So can we get rid of this?
Yeah.
So I wanted to remind people, and I don't think I actually ever mentioned this because we've been so busy and then putting out financial fires at home and then hosting someone for a week. We haven't really had a chance to talk about the Gene Hackman, Betsy Arakawa situation and strange death. Okay. So Gene Hackman, of every actor, in the United States of throughout Hollywood, Gene Hackman was the one actor that made the most money on royalty clips. So sometimes you're on YouTube and all of a sudden out of nowhere you might see a clip from a TV show from the 90s. For a while there it was just constant Friends clips, and now it's constant House MD, clips. Yeah. Remember House MD?
Yeah.
And so it'll be and then for a while it was constant Frasier clips. So what they do is they generate these, and then the actors and the producers and the show and everything gets royalties from those clips. So of all of the actors in Hollywood and all of the performers and everything, Gene Hackman had a really good agent, I guess, who was able to say he will earn the most money on these royalty clips. So anytime a movie is replayed, he's going to get more money than anybody else when their movies are replayed. He's going to get more money if there's a scene from a movie that he did and it's trending on YouTube and it's like a 90-second scene or a 1-minute scene or a 5-minute scene, he's going to get more money. So to me, things are always about money, right? So I'm like, okay, he must be really expensive to the industry. He's really expensive. And so the best way to stop paying a person is to make sure that they are not alive to receive the money.
Or you just lay off all the men in a corporation and pay the people who are less paid or paid less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this whole business, I think it was very sus. Obviously, people have been talking for a long time about the Betsy Arakawa, Gene Hackman death. And then, of course, their poor German Shepherd, I guess, died of natural causes because he was locked in the closet and which to again, I don't believe that part either.
Yeah, he must have been shot first, because what Julie was telling me about German Shepherds is he would have clawed his way out of that closet.
Yeah, so I grew up with champion German Shepherds. My dad he traveled all over the country and showed German Shepherds. German Shepherds are, number one, incredibly loyal, and number two, incredibly strong. So if you lock a German Shepherd inside just like a bedroom closet or a regular closet, they will get out. They have strong teeth and strong mouths. They are very strong. They can get out. And most likely, if Betsy Arakawa was lying there, the German Shepherd would have eaten her if he didn't have food to eat for a week or something.
Right.
So I don't believe the story about the German Shepherd just dying of natural causes or whatever. Being abandoned.
One health.
Yeah. This whole thing breaks. It starts, I think, with the fact that Gene Hackman commanded so much money from the industry based on his royalty. His royalties, his agent must have been brilliant and been able to, or his estate must have been brilliant and been able to, negotiate some really excellent packages for him, royalty packages, getting paid. So I think it has to do with that first. And then I think second to that comes this One Health thing, where suddenly people are dying of, overexposure to mouse poop and coming down with another kind of virus that comes from, last week it was from birds and this week it's from mice, so it's basically just moving us closer into that One Health environment where you can get care, you as a human being and your pet can get the same care, because you share viruses.
Right. Yeah.
So, or you share diseases. Or it's just an excuse to take away your pets or take away food.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Or say we need to exterminate the rodents when really what they're doing is exterminating the humans.
Right. I think that, it talked about pulmonary or let's see. Yeah, well, like breathing issues. I'm not coming up with it right now. Persistent infection in humans. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So they were talking about like, that kind of thing. And, what we've been seeing throughout the United States, people are calling it the crud for the last few months. I got it, you got it, or something like it. And
I think mine's,
and a lot of people have been getting it. And I think that it's not from the bats flying around our neighborhood. It's from this,
no,
it's from whatever spraying is going on in the atmosphere through these SAIs, the sky. Yeah. Well, I don't like to use those nicknames because they don't, I don't think that people take it seriously. SAIs, this
stratospheric aerosol injections.
Right. And they're designed, they're telling us that they're being used for climate change.
Right. To cool the planet.
Yeah. To cool the planet. But really that sounds to me like it would warm up the planet. But anyway, I'm just saying, and I think that there's a lot of things that are in those chemicals that are being sprayed that are falling on us, that are making us sick, and then making, that are also maybe accelerating fires that take place in places that never had those fires at the wrong time of year, and weather issues, and weather manipulation that is going on, Yeah. So I think that we're all feeling ill as a result of a lot of these things. And, and then there's just all the electromagnetic, stuff that's floating around or that's beaming around that we're exposed to as well. And, a lot of us don't get sick from that stuff as much. More sensitive people do. But it's because we live in an environment where it's been that way our entire lives, as opposed to, when you started seeing people getting sick when electricity started being implemented, throughout the country.
Right.
So anyway, I won't get into that, but
okay. So it's currently 1:45.
1:45. Now it's not 1:45 p.m.
It's an hour and 45 minutes.
It is in Mountain Time right now, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 45 minutes into the broadcast. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us this long, and also thank you to the patrons who've helped us through.
You guys really, that, what has been donated so far has been really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Don't qualify for any assistance because the little bit of income that I get and then his unemployment puts us over the limit by a few $100s. So we don't qualify for food benefits. We don't qualify for probably not for our utilities, but I was able to work a few miracles and make the mortgage payment despite not having an income for a month.
Yeah.
So we're not in foreclosure, unlike millions of people that are. We've been down this road before, so we're very creative and open to other options, even if we have to take a 50, 60, 70, 80% pay cut. There are ways to work around, that issue.
So we're not at, we're basically holding on by our fingernails. We still have fingernails. So what we'd like you to do is to help us get a little higher up the cliff and maybe have a hand
on a ledge.
Hand on a ledge at least. Okay. So if you can get us past the fingernails, pull us up a little bit, get us, so we can start, getting ourselves up. You can become a patron at patreon.com/bookofhours. you can subscribe at Substack. And what is that? Substack.com/Book of Hours?
I think so. Yeah.
Something like that.
You can find us on Substack.
You can make a one-time donation on PayPal at paypal.me/Book of Hours. You can go to Cash App. It's Cash App : $$ Book of Hours, all one word. Okay. So you can help us out. Not just a couple bucks here and there. What we would prefer, if you can, subscribe to the two platforms, one or the other, or both if you choose, Substack and Patreon. But we will take those donations. If you don't like doing electronic stuff, email us at info@bookofhours.com. That's info@book-of-hours.com. You can see that up here at the top of your left-hand side of your screen where it says www.book-of-hours.com. Just take away that www and add a info@book-of-hours.com. And you can find out where you can send checks and money orders and make a monthly payment of $9.99. Yeah. So,
and we also, we like gifts. We got gifts in the mail. Like, for instance, the patron sent over this book, which I've been diligently reading since I got it yesterday. We like stuff too,
well, and somebody helped out with some of Julie's supplements that she really
needed them, and they came. So thank you for that. So it's not just money. It's survival. It's to help us survive and not just live and exist, but to hopefully thrive and get better, because some of our health issues are spiraling and we need care.
So give me shelter. Okay.
All right,
guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Have a great rest of your weekend. Get outside if you can, if it's not too cold.
Yeah, it's still cold in the northern. It's beautiful down here at the Gulf Coast right now. But that's part of the reason we moved down here.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the Biloxi Shuckers. This is the baseball team here. They're not playing yet, but I still felt like it was starting to feel like spring.
Yeah. So, and you can't tell, but this necklace this pendant is actually a map of Biloxi, and then there's a little like a little heart on the map where our house is. Where our house is.
Yeah.
So I like to represent. I like to wear it and represent.
So I gave that to Julie as a Christmas present. So
before the
before the loss.
About a month before we were told that the job was being eliminated because the department was being eliminated.
Yeah.
So
all right, guys, thank you so much. We'll try to do a bookmark again soon, sooner than the last time.
Yeah, and I'm going to pick up the Friday readings again.
Yeah, and with some time, I may even be able to do some writing and maybe some other stuff too. So we'll see how that goes. But
exactly.
So we'll talk to you all later, and have a good Saturday and beyond.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll see you guys Friday.
All right, good.
Bye.
Bookmark is made possible by our patrons and supporters. You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Book of Hours. Join Rockfin or leave us a tip at rockfin.com/Book of Hours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.